Okay, that is sort of a long story, but I'll give the short version. Um, Basically, what it was we had a final project to fully present to graduate at the end of our career, a college career, and basically we had a team project, and we partnered with a startup that was close to the campus. We just, popped into their office one day and we're like, hey, would you like any free labor? We're, at this school, we have a final project and it has to be, IT related. Is there any, free help that you would like? And it ended up where I think it was their head of support and somebody from their development team partnered with us, and we basically built out a full-on like Q&A lab for internal lab for their dev team and support team. And we went through the last semester and presented the final project and then graduated. And during the project, they approached us and said, hey, when this is all finalized and you graduate, we have some of these entry-level roles available if anybody wants to apply to them. So I ended up applying to a couple and got to work with that support organization, and they hired me as like a tier 2, tier 3 back-end support technician. So I ended up basically partnering with customers, and then I would triage like bugs and feature requests between the dev team and the customer, and I was that escalation point. And yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And after that support job is when I ended up getting a entry-level help desk 1 position, and I've been in IT ever since. Yeah, definitely. You would want to search for, specific jobs that are, of course, entry level. So go through like, help desk level positions, and you'll be able to look at those requirements and see, okay, most of these level 1 help desk positions need, specific troubleshooting skills, or they need specific networking skills. And then you can go try to research that on your own. Also to get, hands-on experience, a lot of times you're able to go in your community, look at, nonprofit organizations, your school district even, and potentially go to them for, hey, I want to volunteer and help you with your IT. And you'll sometimes be able to get hands-on experience doing that volunteer work, and all of that will add up onto your resume, and you can explain whatever those projects were that you volunteered on, and then that can help you at least land that first phone screen to get your foot in the door on those entry-level IT positions. Future-proof is definitely something I get somewhat concerned about, especially like you mentioned with the introduction of all of the way that the AI is going, and how different SaaS tools are also integrating AI heavily into their platforms. I would say from a future-proof perspective, just staying, up on technology trends, being able to either blogs, news articles, and then, just try to see where like technology trends are headed, and try to learn those technologies, before they land in your lap and you have to scramble to support them, or worry about them, I guess, taking part of your role I look at it though as a tool, like any AI tool, as just a tool to help me with my position. I don't look at it, so to speak, as something that's going to replace, our role at the company or this position at any company. And then just try to embrace those tools to leverage them for your own benefit, and basically try to stay ahead so that you don't end up slipping behind those technology trends in the industry. Yeah, I would say what I see a lot of, especially, because IT related positions that are, technology related, supporting technology, a lot of folks will kind of just put on their resume like what they've been responsible for, like, responsible for our Okta instance. But that's great, and that shows you're managing Okta, and you probably have that skill set. But if you put on your resume like more, I guess, something where you can prove where you've given value to the business, to say, like, instead of I'm responsible for our Okta instance and fully manage that, or whatever you say, you could say I've rolled out Okta for our identity management platform, which allowed us to, save X amount of money at, getting rid of a tool, or it saved you X amount of hours of engineer work so that you were able to save the company a certain amount of money. I would say giving that type of context as you are showing your skills and what tools that you have experience with will go a lot farther than just saying I'm an Okta admin, I deployed Okta, just getting to the nitty gritty of what is on the resume. I think adding that other context would make you stand out. I would start, like, depending, where you're located, you can find either, if you're interested in a specific technology, if you're interested in a specific vendor, you usually can find some sort of, group that is already organized to, share ideas, collaborate, either within like your local area or even via Zoom. So just trying to, look for those specific, not necessarily organizations, but, groups where you can get involved and just like get kind of into that like IT community, so to speak. Once you start getting involved, you'll start to meet people in the industry. You'll be able to, meet other connections that will, have other connections that you may be able to get introduced to, as well as folks that are in the same boat where, hey, I'm very interested in, these specific things. What type of like jobs have you seen that are out on the market that are similar to that? It helps, besides just you trying to lead that stuff on your own. That's been helpful, I would say, like especially early in my career, is being able to find those similar groups of people in the industry and either joining their blogs, joining their forums, visiting their get-togethers if you're close enough. That really, I would say, helped me gather some connections, gather knowledge in the space when it was early on. That's a hard one. I haven't really found a great specific, tool for IT/tech related jobs specifically. Being able to query LinkedIn with, specific queries to narrow down the results is helpful, but it's still pretty difficult on LinkedIn. I don't know. I don't really have a great answer on that one. We need a better, I guess, job board for IT. Mostly just like Reddit. I'm usually on Reddit quite a bit, on the technology stuff there. For like news, somewhat technology news. I usually look at Gizmodo. It's pretty solid. But that's usually about it. If where I actually will like specifically go and search. Other than that, I will, just do a typical Google search and try to find materials. But I regularly usually go to Reddit and Gizmodo. I would say if it's like from a hiring manager's perspective and looking at resumes, the experience working on something, in my opinion, I hold with more value than like just having a certification and like no experience. If they are somebody that, they've been in whatever tool for 3 years, or they're a specialist in it, and then they go ahead and then get those certifications, whatever it is, then that's like the best, where you have the experience and then you have the cert on top of that to back it up. That would be, the best case. But if it's a lower level position, experience isn't necessarily as critical, because it's an entry level role anyway. So if I'm looking at a resume for like an entry level position, and then they have certifications that are related to the role, then that's awesome. That's great. But if they're a lower level position, entry level, if they have some experience but no certification, that's fine as well, because it's an entry level role. But a seasoned admin, the experience is, in my opinion, that holds more weight. But if they have the experience backed up on top of that with a cert, even better. Not necessarily like, hey, give me this, 1.10 of the NIST standard, like, what is that? Not necessarily something along those lines from a knowledge point of view, but having the like knowledge from a framework perspective, like, oh, okay, NIST, we need to comply with, these controls from a, I guess, high level. That's from an IT perspective, that's probably enough. And then you'll get into some environment where, okay, all of a sudden you need to comply with like HIPAA, for example, and then that has a whole nother list of compliance measures. Just having, some overarching high-level knowledge of those frameworks is valuable. Not necessarily getting so down into the nitty-gritty of each control. That would be more of like, if you really want to get into like IT compliance, then that's like a position, and like those frameworks, you would be, you need to be into that and really know all of that from a compliance point of view. So if that's something you're interested in, IT compliance would be a good role. But if okay, we have, SOC standards, HIPAA, FedRAMP, whatever the controls are, and you have the overarching top level understanding, that's usually a good start for like an IT admin. A lot of it to me is just, basic stuff, formatting, make sure your resume is like formatted properly, grammar, spelling, typos, even like you'd be surprised how many resumes you would see where, they're not formatted correctly or there's a bunch of typos. Basic stuff like that, you definitely want to make sure is good. And then, yeah, just like I mentioned before, and give context when you're laying out your skill set. Don't just say Okta certified, or Okta admin, whatever the situation is. Give some context of what you want to explain and show to the person reading your resume. Go say something like, I implemented Okta for an identity management platform. This saved the company X amount of dollars and X amount of man hours on manually creating new hires and manually offboarding new hires. And that would be something that would stand out to me instead of Okta admin responsible for Okta, or whatever it is that doesn't give context. That would help you stand out. Yeah, you can definitely get some good vibes during the interviews if, how the IT team is feeling. You could ask, certain questions, say, how big is the current IT team, and how many, employees are at the company that the IT team has to support. And you can kind of gauge a little bit from like, okay, there's 1,000 people, there's 5 IT employees or whatever the number is, and kind of do some simple math there and say, okay, there's 300 employees per IT technician. If it's some crazy number that seems unrealistic, that may give you a heads up that the IT team is probably pretty under-resourced. And then you can kind of ask further questions that can help you determine like how they're doing. You can also ask about certain processes that the team is doing. For example, you could ask, hey, what is the current process you use for a new hire to onboard, from onboarding to their day one start, and see what the process looks like. If it's completely fully manual and painful, then you can kind of get that response from the IT team and see like, okay, they need help with onboarding or offboarding, and help you basically gear your questions toward gathering that knowledge. You'll be able to also ask about other processes that you're interested in, like, hey, what is your process to manage your laptop fleet? And then if they have nothing, no MDM in place and they're struggling, you'll be able to get that in the interview process as well. I would say lastly, ask them about like ticket volumes and like documentation. You'll be able to tell like, oh, how's like your document resource for like your, I guess, IT department, however you want to phrase it. And if they're like, oh yeah, we have a Confluence space with a ton of help articles, then at least you can feel out that they're doing well, at least documenting. And when you start potentially in that position, you would at least have documentation to refer out of the gate as you're onboarding into that role, and you would at least know more knowledge of what you're getting into as you asked those specific questions during the interview cycle.